Boa tarde, turma. Obrigado aí a todos por estarem aqui no nosso webinar. Vai ser um webinar um pouco português, um pouco inglês. A Ive está treinando português. Já, vamos fazer só em português, mas a ideia aqui é trazer um pouco de futuro da identidade, um pouco qual é a situação atual do mercado, e trazer a Ive, que, além de ser uma pessoa muito bacana, muito legal, eu gosto muito da Ive, é uma expert em identidade, em padrões de mercado, e vamos dar um shift aqui para o inglês. Good afternoon, Eve. Thanks for joining. Appreciate you to be with us here in this webinar with the Brazilian people, Brazilian population, expect worldwide also. Thank you a lot for you to join with us.
Obrigada, André. I will stick to English, though, yes, I am studying Portuguese. I will work on it.
Nice. Ivy, first, I will introduce myself. I'm André. I am president of and founder of Netbr. Today, we are Netbr by SEK. We did this partnership with SEK in Latin America, and we are here today to talk about the identity as a product. Eve, could you introduce yourself, your bio?
Certainly. Yes, so I'm Eve Mailer. I've been doing identity since before we put the letter I on the front, having been involved with SAML in the very beginning, and with a lot of different identity standards, which, as we know, are very important to identity for interoperability and security. And I was most recently the Chief Technology Officer of ForgeRock. Today, I work at Venn Factory, which is my consultancy, working on strategic advisory, and I help the tech world develop irresistible identity strategies. And in the course of that work, I have come to know you, and I've come to know NetBR, and really respect you and that organization. And I'm just very excited to have this opportunity to partner with you as I explore this world of identity that's getting more and more important to the enterprise.
Nice, great. And taking this last phrase from you, the identity is most important for the enterprise. Today, we see the enterprise having a big identity confusion. Not mainly because we feel, and we work together this past, let's say, 10, 20 years, myself, 30 years, we on this subject of identity, and maybe you something like that also. And we see that the companies are more mature on the identity. Before, we need to explain what it was, our BAC, our BAC, we need to, what is IGA, what is PAN, and I personally see a lot of maturity in usage of identity nowadays. But maybe the confusion is not what is these acronym words. Maybe the confusion is how the enterprise can organize themselves, and what the enterprise can expect for the identity in the future, mainly looking for products and platform. What have you seen about this?
Yes. I mean, when we first started working on identity, I think it was mostly about security protection. And it seemed simple. I think we learned pretty quickly that it wasn't simple. And I think that's where the confusion comes from, because it's security technology, cybersecurity technology that also directly impacts people's experience. And I think that's why so many organizations have not known where to put it. If you're doing workforce identity, oftentimes it's not even called identity, right? It's not managed as identity. It's thought of as access management, which is reasonable, but it just means you're missing a lot of opportunities and a lot of coordination inside the organization. If you're thinking about what we now call CIAM, customer identity and access management, it probably started life living inside one product. And maybe you had one product, but now you have 20 products and you had mergers and acquisitions. And now you don't know what to do with it because it's got many masters, essentially. And so I think the confusion comes from it being, sometimes we'll say it's a Swiss Army knife. It has a lot of things you can open on the knife, but now we don't know who's supposed to own it. So that hybrid nature has led to all these problems. And so, from the vendor side, I've seen it for a long, long time. Do you sell to the CISO who might own it? Do you sell to somebody in IT, maybe the CIO? Sometimes in governments, you're selling to the chief digital officer or the transformation officer or something like that. And you don't know who has authority and who is going to be kind of working against you because they don't understand how powerful a concept it can be. So from the enterprise side, I keep seeing organizations where they don't even know where it should live and they keep changing their mind every year or every 2 years. So that's no good for anybody. So that's partly why I wanted to, work on bringing a different story to the market to say, look, if you think in product management terms, everything can change and you can sort of gather all the power together if you find the right owner.
Nice, nice. And then to go deep on this subject, you decide to write a book. Tell me about this new baby you have.
Yeah, it is a baby. I'm in the process. I think the process is going to go quickly from this point. I'm really excited to share with people what this is about. Now, 30 years ago, I often point to this little thing on my wall. That green thing was the proof copy of the cover image for the book that I wrote 30 years ago, which was before XML even existed. It was a long time ago. Things were different. Now, here 30 years later, I have the opportunity to bring this story about, conceiving of digital identity as a product in a book form. And so I've been working really hard on this. I'm going to try and address an audience that doesn't care about identity. It's the enterprise CEO and maybe other members of their leadership team who also don't care about identity or don't understand it. So I'm really trying to help people understand the power and the danger if you get it wrong of identity. So yes, it is my baby. It's currently, not quite born yet, but soon in
9 months.
early in 2026 is when it's coming out. And I it's a crazy thing to take on a project like this. I mean, it's definitely a process, but it's very satisfying. There's a saying by a famous author, an American author named Dorothy Parker, who said, "I hate writing. I love having written."
Uh-huh.
So it's
And,
definitely satisfying once you get the main stuff off onto the page, and that's where I am
and,
now.
and how did you start? I mean, how is like it take a lot of research, interview people. This is maybe is a good mix of coming back your expertise, looking for back times, and then talk with the people now.
Yes.
How is this process to write the book?
Yes.
What you have done?
Yes, I did. So I have worked with, a lot of enterprise customers when I've been working on the vendor side. I also spent time as a Forrester analyst, and worked with a lot of enterprise clients there. And I reached out to just some of the people who are doing this job, who actually not only treat identity as a product, but literally have a role as what I call an identity product owner. Thinking about kind of agile product management techniques. So I reached out to a whole bunch of people who are very good at what they do. And I interviewed them, and I put together a lot of the stories that they shared with me about things gone wrong, how they could make things right, and what their best techniques were. So that's some of what I was doing over the last few months, is putting together all this information from people who are just at the highest level of maturity, representing enterprises that are at the highest level of maturity in any industry. So kind of running the board. I've got, financial services and healthcare and retail and media and a whole bunch of examples of how it could be if we manage to put all those pieces together.
Mm-hmm. And this is very important, Evie, because we go to the market as an implementation company and service delivery, and many companies ask us about benchmarking and what's the better way to organize. And we figure out that it's very hard to define only one model that is the
That's right.
perfect model to the companies to organize themselves. And there is a lack of this benchmarking overall. There is no
Yes.
information about that. There is no like only one good company that will fit in now. Talk about this, because this is something that we have a strong challenge in the market, because, as you said, we were much more mature. We are much more mature nowadays than we were in the past. And what the companies is looking for is the next step to this. So talk about this little
Yeah.
bit.
Isso mesmo. um, it's right. It's true. I think that period of a year or 2 years or 3 years when the job of who owns identity, or all of identity and access management, or some of it, it can lead to long delays in executing on an identity program. And you're right, there is no one standard place where somebody with that responsibility should live. There is no one standard list of responsibilities or authority. And I'm here to kind of try and help people accelerate that process of getting clarity and then moving forward. And so I learned that there's no one place in the organization where somebody lives, and that's okay. Like, I think over the last couple of years, our industry has had this conversation about the chief identity officer, the Cheeto. And I'm not actually a big fan of that name, because it's a little threatening. Like, the CEO isn't going to want to have yet another chief, C-level somebody. And it's not exactly necessary to have that, I don't think. It is necessary to have clarity about what they own and to pick a place for them to live. And we've been talking about ways that we can help these enterprises together get to that clarity as soon as possible, and to make sure that the responsibilities and the authority, the budgeting is all clear, and that they understand the breadth of all the different stakeholders, because it's a crazy, crazy long list of stakeholders. It's kind of everybody. And
Mm-hmm.
so that's kind of my goal, is to say, well, let's help you decide. Let's just decide right now. We'll stick with it. We'll get clarity. And then you can move on and have an amazing program and have an amazing rollout of amazing capabilities, maybe not even necessarily having to buy new technology. You may have really good technology that you're not using very well.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I'm imagining can happen for all these organizations of the world who are really struggling and just don't know the impacts that they could be having.
Yeah, and coming for these words, we use it to justify the delay of. I mean, not tell the delay, but how long it takes to implement the identity solution.
Mhm.
We call it program.
Yes.
My real opinion, we cannot justify the delay just labeling other
Yeah.
word to people put in their minds something that delays. And maybe the delay is because it's the right approach. And then you come on this book with a good approach. And by the way, is the name of our webinar with identity as a product, okay? And jobs to be done.
Yes.
Identity jobs to be done. So I think that we ourselves, and we are in the industry, and this is an industry, by the way, in service, in consulting, and in product, everything, protocols. I think that the industry is changing this and making
Yes.
more products related to platform and embedded the functionality in the platform.
Yeah.
And then we see the coverage of IGA, PAM, but maybe is a good time to approach your ideas about identity as a product and identity
Yeah.
jobs to be done.
Yes. I think there is this moment that we're in right now where there's starting to be a realization. And so the work that I've been doing to put this story together, I think is feeding into identity kind of maturing itself and having its moment on the stage, right? So the notion of using product management thinking, in some cases, it's literal product management. If you're doing customer IAM, it is going to be in your digital products. There's no question. You can still get more clarity by seeing identity across the board as a product that is helping accelerate all the other products. And treating the reason I talk about jobs to be done, so that comes from Chris Christensen. Yes, I get his name right. He's written on innovation and how you accelerate innovation, and it's by clarity in your thinking, basically. So the notion of jobs to be done is looking underneath what you think the job of some product or technology is, and to really understand your customers. So I want to give an example maybe from IGA. So all of us here, on this webinar, we understand what IGA is. But identity governance and administration has a lot of, I'm going to call them customers. So this is now, IGA is only going to be for workforce and, maybe some B2B. And yet, metaphorically, thinking of it as a product is so powerful. So you actually have the CEO and you have the leadership team who don't know they care about IGA, but they care about it because they want to stay out of prison. They have some compliance goals. And then you've got compliance leaders who have very specific requirements around, well, look, we might have a breach. I understand that, but I am for sure going to be audited. And I don't want that to happen. I want to be ready when that happens. Then you have the poor, the line of business managers who have to approve access and do access reviews. And they have specific jobs to be done. Like, I need to get back to work and I want my people to get back to work. So these are they're not like each other at all. These are customers that have different needs for the same piece of software, the same processes. And so you need to, if you're thinking like a product owner, if you're thinking like a product manager, you want to think big about how to satisfy those needs, and you want to manage a backlog, and you want to know how to prioritize, and you need to know how to measure the success. So by understanding all of those things, you can actually start to get IGA, product market fit, which is, we don't use this language at all really today. I've seen some signs, like I think there's a new Gartner report around identity and access management talking about seeing identity programs as products, and I'm all in support. So I'm trying to provide some specific pieces of advice about how to do that.
Nice. And one point you talked also is about the metrics.
Yes.
and the KPI. I will tell the truth. I don't think that we must be static and only driving by the KPIs, because
That's fair.
somehow instead of execute very well, and then when it comes to job to be done approach, we will look for the KPIs, and KPIs is more result in consequence, but we need to have it. Otherwise, we will not show value on what
Mm-hmm.
we will deliver. And then when we
Mm-hmm.
look into KPIs, we have a lot of KPIs nowadays related to identity. Like fraud is a KPI. If I reduce fraud, I will have more revenue. If I reduce risk, I will be better operating, better measured by the market. I have the KPIs of productivity, of efficiency, of compliance. What metrics overall you believe to justify the identity to the corporation, to the enterprise?
So I've been on a hunt for really good metrics. And you're right, it's not just about numbers. Um, you really need to be able to tell a story as well and really impact people, including having board relevance, to be able to have a narrative for the board. A lot of these, I mean, this is a sign that identity is getting more understood and popular because we are seeing board relevant programs being enacted and dashboards that do get elevated all the way up. And that's great. So the question might be, all right, what are the stories and what are the numbers that you need to bring to the table? One story I will share with you that I heard from one of my interviewees was um, a really nice example of workforce identity programs as a product, managed as a product, literally in this case, where they were selling a big single sign-on, multi-factor authentication project to the business, to every part of the business, including individual contributors. And because they understood that it wasn't just about, I call it the 4 Ps, it wasn't just about protection. It wasn't just about security protection. It was also about what I call personalization. So the experiential end, the actual personalizing of services for people who are on the front lines, serving customers, doing whatever they're doing. Um, and they've started to be so successful with this product that people have started writing to the CISO and going, oh my God, this is such a great experience. This has just changed my workday. So imagine you're the CISO who does not get a lot of, good news. And now they've got people falling all over them going, oh, I can actually get my work done. So that's like a great story because now the CISO is going to be an advocate for something, UX is not something CISOs spend their time on. But now they have proof points from the other end of the continuum that they can bring to the board, to the CEO to say, this is having successes in more ways than we thought. Now connect that with what would the numbers look like? And this is not something that I've found a lot of success yet at measuring. But I know it's there because security people don't know how to measure time on task. UX people know how to measure time on task. And that's why we need to have these collaborations inside the enterprise. So if you can reduce the amount of time somebody spends logging in through difficult means to the 10 applications they're going to use in a day across your organization's 1,500 applications, just the amount of time saved and the amount of goodwill that you get from employee satisfaction. ESAT is a real thing, just like CSAT is. These are measures that we can start to use to roll up all the benefits and to keep that product focused on product success and product market fit. And so I'm so excited about like finding those metrics that really represent hybrids of all the things: protection, personalization, payment, and people, as I say. In fact, I might as well just show the graphic so that people know what it's going to look like. So these are the four, I call them the four Ps: protection, personalization, payment, and people. And there's intersections of all of them that I think we need to be aware of. So you can make metrics that start to be hybrids of these, and the benefit of that is it's tough to design metrics, right? It's very tough to design KPIs and OKRs and metrics. What you want to look for is the ones that are so powerful that they motivate pulling together a whole bunch of benefits and mitigating a whole bunch of risks all at once. So there you go.
Nice, nice, nice. And Eve, do you believe that we can how we can work, and for sure is part of your book and your content, how you can help the companies putting this metric together, because this is we have a lot of force nowadays. We have a force, maybe one big force of the identity I see in now us as a much more powerful company in terms of services. The companies have pressure of saving money, saving product, investing a lot of technologies with, let's say, a few results. And there is a topic in your book, then you will talk when you be launched and the name, all this stuff. Okay. But there is a topic I love it about spending a lot of money on digital transformation and what is the result over our staff, or investing a lot of money in solution and they are not delivered yet, and they must spend more money. How you organize the idea of book and putting and adding these 4 Ps additional with productivity that we talk.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Great leading question.
So taking this, and there's a lot of pressure, a lot of external forces coming nowadays, impressing this, how you see the company must go, and how you help the companies to think on this way in your book.
Yes, there's a couple things to remark on here. One is, let me show oftentimes who owns and where an identity function might sit. All the sort of things in bold is where some portion of identity might sit. And you've mentioned what I call the hidden 5th P, which is productivity. Productivity, efficiency, trying to save money, trying to look after the bottom line. Well, the COO is going to be, they're going to care about that a lot. They care about it for every single function of the organization. They will never really own identity, right? But they sure do have a stake in it. So it's the hidden 5th P here, right in the intersection of all 4 of these topics. And so that's one aspect of answering your question. The other part of your question was, how do we go about making it a reality to hit all of those stakeholders' needs, all of those jobs to be done? And I don't want to forget about who else I had there in the center of all 4 of the topics. And that's people themselves, all the end users, all the people who have identity profiles, but aren't even managing those profiles all by themselves. So how do you do it? Well, the first thing is to get clarity fast on conceiving of identity as one unified thing and finding the right identity product owner. So that's step 1. Step 2 is, with the empowerment that you've given them wherever they live in the organization, is to enable them to put together those jobs to be done. And that's going to be a very collaborative, cross-functional kind of exercise. One of the things that I recommend is to put together an identity data balance sheet. So that's not something we really think about. It's easy to think of a privacy risk assessment that goes data field by data field. People always forget about the value side of that balance sheet. And I think that one of the ways you can drive clarity very operationally in the organization is to do that kind of exercise. Even with one or two fields, it's very clarifying. And then, I've been working a lot with organizations over the last couple of years. Venn Factory is almost 2 years old. And I've been helping in this process of ensuring that, in product land, we talk about what's the why. When you talk about an organization's mission and vision, you often talk about it's not just the what, it's not just the how, it's about the why. And so I've structured a way to figure out identity's why. Why is identity on this digital planet to do the thing that it needs to do for the digital functions of this organization? And it ends up trying to come up with what I call nanovisions. So now we've got ways to connect the organization's real vision and real mission to what identity needs to do to make it actually exciting and irresistible to every part of the organization. So it's a process to go through, and that looks like something that's going to determine how you prioritize that backlog of awesome things that you can do. It's no longer answering tickets. It's no longer just, join, remove, reliever things for today. It's no longer a short time horizon. You can start to have a 1 or 2 year, even 3 to 5 year time horizon, because there's so many exciting things coming around the corner. And we want to be prepared for those so that the business can benefit.
Mm-hmm. And there is a topic in your book I personally love, and it's a challenge for us that we work with identity for a long time, and we only think about the technical piece, and we love the technical, right? And
I love the technical piece, sure.
I'm a C and C++ developer. You are standardized professional for a long
protocol geek.
protocols and all stuff. But translating the identity complexity in the business language. I love this topic in your book. And it's a big challenge for us because in the end of the day, you never will have a good experience if you don't standardize. And we call it the core infrastructure, right? If you don't pass through the structural core, you will not have a better user experience. How you manage this technical piece with the business language?
If you only focus on productivity and protection, it will forever be a cost center, is the problem. If you're only focused on risk and efficiency, you can't get out of the mindset of it's all about tickets and incidents. And so you have to make it real, I think, for the people who own the business, right? So for the business owners, for the person who is ultimately accountable to their board to ensure growth and to ensure those digital transformation initiatives actually go somewhere, you have to put it in terms that make sense for the positive side of the ledger. There's no way around it. You just have to do that. And so I've tried to sort of accommodate all of those ways of thinking and show how, for these things that touch your products, for these things that touch employee experience, for these things that are wasting so much time and so much money. I mean, I'll give you one example that I share in the book, and it's a call center example, and everybody has help desks. And I understand in Brazil, this is not actually a risk because the whole notion of remote worker fraud. But there's a new kind of fraud, and US businesses are definitely feeling this because of coming out of COVID and remote onboarding, things like that. There's a tremendous amount of risk in the person being just a synthetic identity, and it actually turns out to be a North Korean fraudster who's coming into your business, and now they're in a position to do a lot of damage as an insider. So when it comes to these interactions that are fully remote, whether it's a customer call center or whether it's an employee showing up, for interviews and for their first day, but you never know who they are. Certain technologies that we probably have available in the organization around verification, in this case, start to become way more valuable. So how prepared is your organization to actually use the technology you've already integrated in this new use case? How fast can you roll those out? So things like orchestration become a major advantage to show that you have the agility, the flexibility to take care of the risk and take care of the experience and not to compromise. So that's the way I do it.
Uh-huh.
is telling that story.
And looking for the future, we had this pressure of saving and results, but on the other side, we have a pressure, very strong pressure of innovation and new technologies coming. And I saw you pointed this in your book also, as AI, as wallet, maybe more complex with quantum cryptography that will impact a lot the identity also. How do you see the future of identity in the next 5 years? The Gartner point that between 5 and 10 years, it will be much more consolidated, the identity products, much more as a platform that you can consume instead of product that you need to implement. And I believe strongly on this. How do you see that?
I think the product thinking enables you to match results with business value and to optimize value capture. And that's something that we haven't really been very good at in identity for the past 2-3 decades, right? We've been trying really hard, but I think we now have to rise to the moment. So what I see, I just mentioned orchestration as one of these kind of, in the book, I call it a big idea that I think is going to become essential and kind of permanent in our landscape. That in order to have that agility, we're going to need to be able to sew together lots of different pieces and be ready at a moment's notice to kind of reroute. So that's one of the big ideas I think is important. Another one I actually just mentioned as well, identity verification. And I'm going to say identity data verification, more fine-grained than just, we've now identified you as this real world person and we've just compromised 100% of your privacy. Like, that's not necessarily what we really need. It's funny, we've just seen over the last week this phenomenon with X, formerly Twitter, adding a bit of transparency about users' locations, just broadly, like what country they're in, not exposing where they live exactly, just exposing enough information for reputation questions to be answered. Very interesting example of a little bit of identity data being very powerful in adding to our ability to trust or our knowledge that we should distrust somebody, right? So it's a great example, not coming so much from the world of identity, but that identity underlies that entire system. So it's a really great example. I've written in the past about, well, I have a paper called Consent is Dead. And I've been talking about how, digital consent for, personal information sharing has not been working very well. And now we come to find out over the last week or two that those who are subject to GDPR are now in a question again, because GDPR is now being kind of reeled back. They're softening some of the rules around GDPR. So I feel very comfortable in my prediction that consent is dead. I think it's the wrong tool. So I believe that new international standards work. It's from IEEE and it's called P7012. The nickname is My Terms, is a much more productive direction to go for how personal data is actually shared and controlled in the sharing. So those are some of the biggest things that I see on the horizon for, in 5 years, things are going to look really different. as a result of some of those technologies. And I mention some others in the book as well.
Great. To finalize here, we will open for some questions. We have one question from Newton. Newton, thank you for the question. But watching to implement all of the thinking, what the people can reach you, how
Yes.
we can work here together,
Yes.
speak Portuguese.
I'm working on that part. So briefly, so I expect the book to come out very early next year. And I've been very pleased to partner with Netbr by SEK, so that we can help organizations not have to wonder about that first part of the process, how you get to clarity fast as you're looking to implement your program. Conceiving of it the right way, then you can speed up all the rest of the process. And so we've been partnering to help all of your customers in the region accelerate that process and get to success faster and with more predictability. And so I think people can reach out to you or me in LinkedIn. And I think you had an email address for people to look for more information. But we are absolutely bringing these ideas to market so that we can make identity be a better product market fit for everybody. Oh, and I haven't mentioned the name of the book. The name is still squishy, but I'm gonna try out the name for all the attendees here today. Mastering Digital Identity from Risk to Revenue is my current thinking on the titles. Let me know what you think.
And when we expect to be launched?
Sometime, I'm hoping in January.
Nice. Great.
And I'll be putting together what I call a launch team. So if anybody's interested, please reach out to me in LinkedIn and I'll add you to the launch team so you can help me get the word out. I'd really appreciate it. Oh, Raphael, thank you for your support on that title.
We have two questions here. One is, and by the way, is included in your book, this all new topic of identity. But what do you think about the steps needs to think about to define the workforce? It is more related to definition. And
yeah. So workforce, customer, non-human, right? I do address non-human identity briefly in the book. I will say I spend most of the time on the human angle, and I have a very specific definition. Because sometimes we do see there's an identity product owner for workforce versus an identity product owner for customer identity. And I think there are times when it could be acceptable. It depends on the organization and their culture and their history. But here's my definition of workforce versus customer. And I just use those two categories. I don't define like a third one, B2B. And here's the reason. Partners of various kinds resemble more either workforce or customers when they're upstream from your business versus downstream. So I include part of B2B, business to business, in workforce when they are your supply chain partners, when they're your upstream partners, because the relationship you have with them is, hey, you're the customer, you get to tell them what to do. So just like you get to tell employees what to do, and sometimes they're right in your systems, they need to get access to really sensitive stuff. So it's much more like employees. Downstream partners, channel partners, those who are helping you sell, they're much more like customers because they're helping accelerate your business quite directly. And so I divide B2B basically into those two halves. And I haven't, different organizations might split them sort of different ways, but I recommend this split because I think it makes the incentives much clearer.
And it's part of the second question from Fabio also. about
I think I might have answered that one in a way.
Yes, because product identity as a product, is there any benefit related with the supply chain? But maybe the supply chain, we are talking a B2B, right?
Yeah, I think so. I think so. And here's what I would say. If you think of identity as a product, as a metaphor, as an analogy, then workforce identity can be handled as a product, and it's a metaphor in that case. But it's a really good metaphor, and I share in the book some examples of exactly how you market that product internally, for example. When it comes to customer identity, it is quite literally part of your product. So managing it in the way that you manage products, with sprints and backlogs and all the things that we're aware of with delivering things to market, is a much closer analogy. And I think it's appropriate to think of it in terms, it might even, now for some organizations, it might literally become a product that they didn't used to have, but they're now monetizing some aspect of identity they're really good at, and they're actually bringing some identity related product to market. So sometimes it literally is a product, sometimes it's part of product, and that's the right way to think of it. And sometimes, well, it's not a product, but product thinking gets you really far. In fact, it gets you really far with a lot of things, right? Because it gets you to empathize with your customer, or quote customer. So you put yourself in their shoes, and that's always a good idea.
Nice. So we are on the time here. Evie, thanks for the question, people. Evie, appreciate your partnership and your participation of our webinar here. Appreciate a lot, and we will work together in our region, and also with your book. Okay, good.
It's an honor. Thank
you.
You
come here to our market with you. Appreciate
I would love that. Yes, love to do that more. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, people. We appreciate your time. See you on the next webinar, Netbr. Bye-bye.
Bye.